Injustice has a strange way of setting the stage for destiny. The wealthy guests had expected humiliation, a laugh at a maid's expense, a spectacle to confirm their prejudice. But as the orchestra raised their bows, something happened that not one person in that glittering hall could have imagined. What began as mockery was about to transform into revelation, a moment that would not only silence cruelty but shake the very foundations of power in that ballroom. Kesha closed her eyes, letting the swell of violins carry her back 15 years. She remembered the grand stage of the National Theatre, the roar of an audience, and the unshakable certainty that she had been born to dance. She remembered the doctors who said she would never rise again, the journalists who wrote her career's obituary, and the years of hiding her passion in secret. And now, in this gilded room where every eye watched with disdain, she prepared to reclaim the part of her soul they thought was buried forever. The first notes of the waltz floated across the marble floor. She moved, not with hesitation, but with a grace so effortless that the atmosphere shifted instantly. Gasps rose. The air felt lighter, as though gravity itself had bent to her command. What began with measured steps exploded into flowing turns and breathtaking leaps. Her body spoke a language the crowd did not expect from a maid. It spoke mastery, discipline, and something deeper, unbreakable spirit. One guest whispered, "Impossible, she's extraordinary." William Thompson's smirk dissolved. Victoria's prideful smile faltered. Even the musicians faltered slightly, sensing they were accompanying not a novice, but an artist of rare genius. And then came the moment no one could deny. Kesha launched into a sequence of pirouettes, flawless, endless turns that blurred into light. She soared in a grand jeté, landing with a softness that defied physics. The finale struck like thunder. Her signature fusion of ballet and waltz, a piece once performed only at the height of her career. An arts patron in the crowd gasped, recognizing it instantly. "I've seen that before, that's Kesha Merrow." The hall erupted into shocked murmurs. Cameras rose. Jonathan Thompson, unlike his father, could not look away. His lens captured every breathtaking second, his face awash with admiration. The music thundered to its final note. Kesha froze in a pose of strength and dignity, her arms outstretched, her chin raised high. Silence. The silence that only follows greatness. And then, applause. First a single pair of hands, then a chorus, then the entire room rising, clapping, shouting. Bravo. Magnificent. William stood pale, humiliated before the very elite he had hoped to impress. Marcus stepped forward, raising his phone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "allow me to introduce Kesha Merrow, former principal soloist of the American National Ballet." The name rippled through the crowd like lightning. Gasps, exclamations, disbelief. Victoria choked on her words. That cannot be. She never danced again after the accident." Kesha smiled softly. "Rumors of my death," she said, "were exaggerated." Laughter and applause broke out, but William's face contorted in rage. And then Marcus pressed play. The recording of William's drunken wager filled the room, his own voice promising that if this maid danced better than his wife, he would marry her to his son. Laughter mixed with outrage. "That's blackmail." William roared. "No," Kesha replied calmly. "That is accountability. You made a bet in front of 200 witnesses. The only question left is, are you a man of your word?" The crowd turned, waiting for his answer. Jonathan stepped forward, his voice steady. "Miss Merrow, I will honor my father's word. Not because I must, but because any man would be proud to stand beside a woman of such dignity." The hall held its breath. William trembled with fury. "Jonathan, if you do this, you lose everything, the company, the fortune, the family." Jonathan lifted his chin. "Then so be it. Some things matter more than money, like integrity." Kesha's eyes filled with quiet triumph. She looked at the audience, then back at William. "You tried to strip me of dignity because of my work, my color, and my past. But true nobility," she said firmly, "comes not from wealth, but from how we treat others when we believe no one is watching." The audience roared in approval, while William Thompson realized his empire had just begun to crumble, not at the hands of rivals, but by the grace of the very woman he had mocked. The storm that swept through William Thompson's empire did not stop at headlines. By the end of the week, the man once feared across Manhattan found himself stripped of the very pillars he believed unshakable. His company forced him out. His partners turned their backs. His wife, Victoria, filed for divorce and fled to Europe. And the empire he had built on arrogance collapsed in silence, leaving behind a man with nothing but his own reflection and regret. Meanwhile, Kesha's life was transformed. Donations poured in from around the world. Ballet enthusiasts, community leaders, and everyday people who had seen the video sent letters, checks, and heartfelt messages. Within months, the Kesha Merrow Center for the Arts rose in the heart of Manhattan, a sanctuary where children of every background could learn to dance, create, and dream without fear of prejudice. On its opening day, the once-forgotten ballerina stood before a room filled with children whose eyes shone with possibility. You see, she told them softly, true nobility isn't about money or titles. It's about lifting others when the world tries to push them down. Her words lit the room brighter than any chandelier. Jonathan Thompson became the center's first major donor. No longer tied to his father's crumbling fortune, he rebuilt the family business under a new vision: integrity, social responsibility, and fairness. When he visited the center, he did not come as a benefactor or a wealthy heir, but as a man grateful to stand beside someone who had taught him what honor truly meant. One evening, after classes ended, Jonathan approached Kesha with a bouquet of fresh flowers he had grown in the garden outside the center himself. "Ready for dinner?" he asked gently, extending his arm. This time, Kesha smiled and accepted. Not because of a bet, not because of public pressure, but because she saw in him something his father had never understood: respect. As the two walked out together, Marcus whispered with a grin, "That's real victory. Not destroying someone, but creating something so beautiful their cruelty becomes irrelevant." And he was right. Kesha's revenge was not the fall of William Thompson, though the world would remember his humiliation. Her revenge was her rise. Her dignity. Her unshakable spirit that turned pain into power, and prejudice into purpose. Some said William had been seen working quietly at a small firm, a shadow of the man he once was. Others said he could not bear the shame. But to Kesha, his fate no longer mattered. What mattered were the children who now danced freely in her center, each step proving that greatness cannot be erased by cruelty. She had been mocked as a maid. She stood revealed as a champion. And in doing so, she had transformed not only her own life, but the lives of everyone who believed the lie that they were less. Her story became a living reminder: when hatred tries to silence us, the most powerful answer is not anger, but excellence. So tell me, what about you? Has anyone ever tried to tell you that your dream was impossible? And how did you prove them wrong? Share your story in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe for more stories that show the world. The best revenge is to rise above.